First thing you do, you take a drink, and after they've had their first one, they start to get warm. Now, they wipe their face off, and when they put their handkerchiefs back, it's never...
In October 2024, something extraordinary appeared on Tubi, something that made 2 million people stop scrolling. For over 4 decades, this footage had remained hidden, locked away in studio vaults, untouched by the public eye. The network had called it too emotional to broadcast. What viewers finally saw was Red Skelton, not as the clown who brought laughter to millions, but as a man unguarded, vulnerable, and deeply human. He turned his final performance into something resembling a confession booth. Speaking directly to the camera, Red revealed family tragedies, career deceptions, and personal failures. The intensity of it was like reading someone's private diary, and the internet buzzed with reactions. The question everyone asked was simple: why release it now? Red Skelton was born July 18, 1913, in a cramped shack in Vincennes, Indiana, just 2 months after his father's death. His father, a circus clown in the Hagen-Beck-Wallace Circus, had passed from heart failure at the age of 37. The man who made strangers laugh never brought joy home, leaving Red's mother to raise 4 boys alone. Life was brutal. The small family store collapsed, forcing them to rely on neighbors' generosity just to survive. Red went to bed hungry in ragged clothes, carrying the weight of being the poorest child in school. But even then, he discovered the power of humor. It became a shield for survival, not applause. That hunger, that necessity to turn pain into laughter, shaped his voice, timing, and truth. By the age of 7, Red was selling newspapers on street corners for 3 cents, cracking jokes to boost his sales. By 10, he was juggling jobs, delivering ice, carrying cigars, scrubbing laundry, walking miles just to bring a few coins home. He saw families pawn rings for bread and children attending school barefoot. His education was patchy, squeezed between shifts and hardship. But every shared laugh with strangers was a lesson etched in memory, preparing him for a lifetime on stage. At age 10, Red ran away with a medicine show led by Doc Ari Lewis. For $10 a week, he hawked fake cure-alls, slept in wagons and barns, and sent all his earnings back to his mother. One night, a misstep on stage smashed a case of glass, and the crowd laughed uproariously. That moment taught Red a truth he never forgot: even mistakes can be magic if you let them. Over 4 years, he picked up essential skills, tricks, gags, accents, juggling, pantomime, tools that defined his career. He learned to perform without applause, to be poor without bitterness, to laugh without reason. His father was a ghost in his life. Stories told by others shaped Red's understanding of him. Each circus tent he entered, every dressing room mirror he faced, Red sought the man he never met. That ache for paternal connection drove much of his artistry. My comedy, he later admitted, was just a way to bring back what was missing at home. At 15, Red left school for good. He had $135 in his pocket and a vague promise from a burlesque comic in Chicago. With a suitcase and his mother's quiet blessing, he hit the road. Every gig mattered: circuses, nightclubs, backrooms, sidewalks. He worked through the Great Depression as if racing the clock itself. By 16, Red was touring with the Hagen-Beck-Wallace Circus, the very one his father had performed in. The sawdust, the sweat, the hush before a punchline, this became his real home. He joined a silent vaudeville act called the Merry Mutes, miming, dancing, and falling for $5 a week. From these silent lessons, he discovered the power of expression without words. His face became a map of all he couldn't say as a child. By 1931, Red added speech to his act, performing impressions of Clark Gable and drawing crowds of $75 a week, a fortune during the Depression. Yet, betrayal struck when his partner Bud Jones cheated, leaving Red heartbroken. In the ruins of this partnership, he met Edna Stillwell, an usher with a razor-sharp comedic mind. Red and Edna married in 1934, he was 21, she was 13. While controversial by today's standards, their union was one of creative collaboration. Edna wrote, booked, and shaped his career. Together, they created sketches like Guzzler's Gin, turning Red's physical comedy into radio and club sensations. By 1937, They were earning $2,000 a week, and Chicago audiences flocked to see Red's rubber-faced antics. But behind the scenes, their marriage strained under the pressure of success. In 1937, Red joined the Avalon Time on radio, introducing the slow-talking bumpkin Clem Cadillhopper. The character skyrocketed in popularity, and merchandise flew off shelves. Yet, as fame grew, the personal cost increased. Red transitioned to film quietly in 1940, signing with MGM. His first minor role in Flight Command went unnoticed, but Dr. Kildare's Wedding Day in 1941 changed everything. A pantomime drunk scene stole the spotlight from the lead actor, proving Red could command a screen with physicality alone. MGM quickly realized that even a weak script could shine with Red in the cast. By 1943, Red led Whistling in Brooklyn, blending comedy, detective work, and sports. Audiences loved it. Stop-motion effects, innovative for the era, heightened his physical comedy. MGM's gamble paid off. Yet behind the success was personal tragedy. In 1944, Red learned his infant son Richard had leukemia. Filming continued, but grief shadowed every performance. Richard passed in 1958 at age 9, leaving a wound that never fully healed. Red's transition to television began on September 30, 1951, with The Red Skelton Show, reaching 30 million viewers coast to coast. Mime, music, and sketches captivated audiences, earning him 2 Emmys the following year. In 1952, he introduced Freddie the Freeloader, a hobo with a limp, a grin, and a heart of gold. Freddie became more famous than some movie stars, offering hope, warmth, and laughter to a nation recovering from war. But life off-screen was tumultuous. In 1957, Edna's affair with a producer led to divorce. Custody battles ensued, and Red grieved publicly, sometimes appearing in clown makeup just to be seen as a father. Just months later, his son Richard was diagnosed with leukemia. Red canceled his show while the nation watched Johnny Carson fill his slot. Grief consumed him. By the 1960s, Red leaned heavily into pantomime as smoking and years of physical comedy began to affect his voice. He created George Appleby, the henpecked husband, blending satire with heart. Ratings soared to 40 million viewers on peak nights. Moving to CBS in 1962, Red won another Emmy for writing. He remained a comedian with a conscience, mocking life, suburbia, and even himself. By 1965, color TV became a reality. Red initially resisted, fearing it was a gimmick. But audiences demanded it, and he adapted, bringing his most famous sketches to life in vibrant color. His scrapbook retrospective became one of the most watched TV events of the decade. In 1969, CBS decided to chase youth culture, replacing Red with edgier variety shows. Red moved to NBC for one final season. His last show aired May 19, 1971, a soft, heartfelt farewell. Behind the painted smile, he was exhausted but unbroken. 2 years later, the IRS came calling, demanding $1.2 million in back taxes. At 60, Red sold his Palm Springs estate and hit the road, performing live in casinos to pay off debts. The glamour was gone, only the work remained. In 1976, NBC gave Red specials under the title Funny Faces. He revived Clem Cadillhopper and other routines, earning $500,000 in syndication. After his second wife, Georgia, died that same year, Red turned to painting. Over 500 oil portraits captured the heart and characters of his life. By 1980, a Las Vegas exhibit sold 200 paintings for $5,000 each. Art became his therapy, his voice when grief silenced him. In 1981, while headlining in Las Vegas, Red collapsed backstage due to a relapse into drinking. He nearly died. Later that year, he filmed Freddie the Freeloader's Christmas Dinner for HBO. Simple, heartwarming, yet raw, it reminded audiences of the man behind the clown. In 1983, Red revealed his wartime service in Europe, performing for soldiers under blackouts, broadcasting on Armed Forces Radio. He was recognized for service few knew about. On his 70th birthday, July 18, he performed at Royal Albert Hall for Queen Elizabeth II, blending comedy, stories, and music, a tribute to his father and life's journey. Even after his death in 1997, Red's influence endured. Unearthed episodes, censored sketches, and private reels revealed a more complex, political, and human side of Red. By 2020, his paintings of Freddie the Freeloader sold for as much as $1 million. The Skelton estate donated over 1,000 works to museums. A $4 million gallery was built in his honor. Then, in October 2024, Tubi streamed his farewell specials, uncensored. 2 million viewers watched footage showing Red crying, reflecting, confessing. He spoke of stolen scripts at 16, losses, and pain, so personal it felt like reading a diary. The footage was restored in 4K, highlighting every subtle gesture, every twitch in his pantomimes. New audiences discovered what a painted smile could truly convey. Red Skelton's life was built on laughter, but behind that laughter was grief, resilience, and artistry. From a poor child in Vincennes to a national icon, he transformed pain into joy, tragedy into creativity, silence into storytelling. His farewell on Tubi didn't just entertain, it reminded the world of the human heart behind every clown, every sketch, every smile. The story of Red Skelton is not just about comedy. It is about loss, persistence, and the courage to show vulnerability in a world that demanded laughter. It is about a man who gave everything to make others happy, even when happiness eluded him. And finally, it is about legacy, art, laughter, and humanity preserved for generations to come. Even as the world laughed at Freddie the Freeloader or Clem Cadillhopper, Red was constantly wrestling with the man behind the makeup. Colleagues recalled that once the cameras stopped rolling, he could sit in silence for hours, staring at nothing, revisiting memories of childhood poverty, lost family members, and missed opportunities. Red once said, "A clown's face is a mask, but it's also a mirror." Every twitch, every grimace, every exaggerated fall carried a trace of pain he could never fully speak aloud. He learned to translate heartbreak into gestures, grief into timing, and disappointment into punchlines. This gave his performances a depth that made audiences feel rather than just laugh. Red didn't keep his experience to himself. Over the years, he became a mentor to younger comics, guiding them through the pitfalls of fame, the demands of television, and the harsh realities of stage performance. Many comedians of the 1960s and 70s credited him with shaping their understanding of physical comedy and emotional nuance. He taught that timing wasn't just about laughs, but about connection, the pause before a word, the glance to an audience member, the subtle lift of an eyebrow. Even his silence spoke volumes. He pushed his protégés to explore their own vulnerabilities, reminding them, the audience will forgive a stumble if they feel your truth. Despite fame, Red battled loneliness and addiction. He relapsed into alcohol multiple times and was candid about the struggle. Friends often found him wandering the streets late at night or sitting quietly in theaters after performances, consumed by what could have been. Yet, he never let the audience see the full weight of his burden. His performances were meticulous constructions, balancing joy and sorrow. Even in his darkest moments, Red held a code of professionalism, understanding that laughter was a gift he couldn't withhold. This duality, the private sorrow and public joy, became a hallmark of his legacy. After losing Georgia in 1976, Red turned to painting not just as a hobby but as a lifeline. His canvases capture not only characters like Freddie but also the essence of humanity he had observed throughout life. Museums now describe his work as intensely autobiographical, with layers of humor, tragedy, and resilience embedded in every brushstroke. Collectors and critics alike marveled at how Red could translate movement and expression from stage to canvas, preserving gestures, postures, and emotions that had once made millions laugh. Through painting, Red found a new stage, one that allowed him to speak without performing. Red's HBO specials, particularly from 1981 to 1983, became cultural touchstones. Simple productions with small budgets, yet every frame was filled with humanity. Freddie's Christmas Dinner, collaborations with Marcel Marceau, and the Royal Albert Hall performance exemplified Red's ability to transcend comedy. These specials were more than nostalgia, they were educational for future generations of performers, demonstrating the craft of timing, pantomime, and audience connection. The raw, unedited moments in these specials offered glimpses into Red's personal life, grief, and philosophy, making them invaluable historical documents. The treasure trove of unaired episodes, censored sketches, and private reels revealed a Red Skelton previously unknown. These reels, resurfacing in 2013 and beyond, showed him tackling racism, civil rights, and social commentary, often ahead of his time. Networks had once deemed these sketches too controversial, but decades later, they showcased Red's progressive thinking and moral courage. Through this rediscovery, the public began to see Red not just as a comedian but as a cultural observer and storyteller, someone who used humor to challenge, reflect, and question the world around him. October 2024 marked the final revelation. Tubi streamed Red Skelton's farewell specials, uncensored and restored in 4K. Viewers witnessed a man confronting his past, speaking of a father he never met, the death of his son, and the theft of circus scripts as a teenager. This footage was hauntingly intimate. Red spoke directly to the camera, tears welling, revealing the internal struggles behind a life spent making others laugh. For many, it was too personal to watch without pausing, reflecting on the cost of laughter, fame, and love lost. Red's legacy challenges modern audiences to reconsider what comedy truly represents. It is not just laughter for entertainment, it is storytelling, vulnerability, and emotional resonance. His pantomime, physicality, and characters like Freddy the Freeloader prove that humor can carry depth, grief, and hope simultaneously. New generations discovering Red through Tubi, museum exhibits, and retrospectives are learning to see the humanity behind the painted smile, understanding that every gesture, pause, and joke was a reflection of a life both beautiful and broken. The Skelton estate ensured that Red's work, television, film, and paintings, remains accessible. Galleries, museums, and streaming platforms protect not just the laughter but the lessons embedded in every act. From lost kinescopes to his 50,000 paintings, the world now has a fuller picture of the man who transformed suffering into art. Red Skelton's story is a reminder, comedy is more than smiles, it is survival, reflection, and communication. Every child growing up with Freddy, every viewer pausing at a 4K restoration, experiences a connection to a human life rich in complexity and courage. Decades after his passing, Red continues to captivate. His work is timeless not because it is old, but because it resonates with human experience across eras. Pain, laughter, loss, hope, these are universal. Red Skelton distilled them into gestures, sketches, and sketches without words, ensuring his relevance long after the curtains closed. In a world obsessed with instant gratification and fleeting trends, Red reminds us that depth, patience, and observation create art that endures. His Tubi release in 2024 is just one chapter of a story that will continue to inspire performers, artists, and audiences alike. Fame arrived early for Red, and with it came immense pressure. Behind the applause and the million-dollar contracts lay a man constantly striving for perfection. Crew members recalled him staying hours after filming, adjusting every gesture, rehearsing lines that were already perfect, and silently berating himself for every perceived flaw. Red once admitted, "People think a clown's job is easy. But every smile you see is the product of discipline, heartbreak, and years of practice." Fame was not just recognition, it was responsibility, a weight he carried with the same seriousness as grief or love. He understood that audiences didn't just pay to laugh, they trusted him to deliver honesty wrapped in humor. The tragedies in Red's life defined him as much as his comedy. Losing his son Richard at just 9 years old left an indelible mark. Red said that grief changed how he approached performance. He could no longer hide behind slapstick, he had to infuse sincerity into every gesture. Red's relationships with his wives, children, and extended family were complex. Custody battles, divorce, and remarriage brought public scrutiny, yet he navigated it with a quiet dignity. Friends noted that even in moments of intense personal pain, Red prioritized showing love to his children and family, sometimes in unconventional ways, like performing in clown makeup just to see his daughter smile. Red's approach to comedy was never superficial. He believed humor should reflect truth and humanity. "A joke without truth is empty," he said. Characters like Freddy the Freeloader or Clem Cadillhopper were mirrors of society, embodying vulnerability, kindness, and resilience. Red's work also showed that comedy could challenge norms without cruelty. His sketches touched on social issues like poverty, inequality, and human frailty, often cloaked in laughter. Audiences laughed, but Red knew they were also thinking, feeling, and reflecting, a duality he mastered like no other. Though deeply American in his roots, Red's influence spread globally. His Royal Albert Hall performance for Queen Elizabeth II in 1983 was more than a birthday celebration, it was proof that humor transcends culture and language. Across the ocean, audiences laughed at his pantomime, understood the heartbreak in his expressions, and connected with the universal human experiences he portrayed. Red's specials, broadcast internationally on HBO and other networks, introduced foreign audiences to the nuances of American vaudeville comedy, cementing his place not just as a national icon but as a global performer with timeless appeal. Red Skelton didn't just entertain, he educated. Younger comedians sought his guidance, learning not just the mechanics of timing and pantomime but also the ethics of comedy. Red emphasized responsibility, never punch down, never mock without purpose, and always connect to the human experience. Many stars of the 1970s and 80s credited him with shaping their craft, acknowledging that his influence went beyond laughter into shaping comedy as an art form. Red's lessons were simple but profound: make people feel something, even if it's just for a moment. That is worth more than applause. Despite his successes, Red faced ongoing personal battles. He struggled with alcohol, smoking, and exhaustion from decades of performance. Doctors repeatedly warned him, but his dedication to his craft often took precedence. In 1986, a severe car accident in Palm Desert left him with 12 broken bones, including fractured ribs and legs. Recovery was long and painful, but Red's resilience shone through. He joked with the press, but behind closed doors, he feared his performing days might be over. Yet, the stage was inseparable from his identity, he couldn't survive without it, even as it nearly destroyed him. Painting became Red's secret stage, a way to channel grief, joy, and memory. Over 50,000 paintings later, his art revealed the same depth seen in his performances. Each canvas captured motion, expression, and emotion, often reflecting characters he created decades earlier. Collectors and historians noted that Red's paintings were not just nostalgic, they were studies in human emotion, observation, and resilience. In this medium, he could be vulnerable without fear, expressing what he never could in front of millions of viewers. The 2013 unearthing of over 200 hours of unaired kinescopes revealed a Red Skelton few had ever known. These sketches, often censored for content in the 1950s, tackled racism, civil rights, and social commentary, proving that Red was not just a comedian but an artist and social observer. Audiences and historians began to reassess his legacy, recognizing that his comedy was layered, thoughtful, and sometimes daring. The material preserved in these reels offered a fresh lens on the man behind the painted face, a Red who could entertain, challenge, and provoke thought. Finally, in October 2024, Tubi released the uncensored farewell specials. For the first time, the public witnessed Red in a raw, unguarded state. In one 45-minute segment of Freddy the Freeloader's Christmas Dinner, Red cried, spoke extemporaneously, and shared deeply personal reflections on his father, his son Richard, and moments of moral compromise. The footage was painstakingly restored in 4K, capturing the subtle movements, the tiny gestures, the flickers of emotion that only those who truly study pantomime could appreciate. Audiences described it as life-changing, a look into the soul of a man who had made it his life mission to bring joy while silently carrying a world of pain. Red's story teaches that humor is not escapism, it is resilience, communication, and empathy. His work reminds us that laughter often masks grief, struggle, and personal sacrifice, yet it can also heal, inspire, and connect. In the modern era, as new audiences discover him through streaming platforms, museum exhibits, and retrospectives, Red's legacy continues to grow. Not just as a clown, not just as a painter, but as a symbol of human perseverance, artistry, and the profound power of humor. Red Skelton's career was built not only on television and film but also on the grueling tour circuits that defined his early life and later revivals. Even as fame took hold, Red never abandoned live performances. He understood that true connection with an audience could not be faked. Each theater, casino, and auditorium became a classroom, a laboratory, and a stage of raw human emotion. During the 1970s, after financial troubles forced him back on the road, Red performed 6 shows a day in Las Vegas, often moving between casinos in a single night. Crew members remembered him walking into a stage dimly lit, exhausted from travel, only to transform instantly when the music started or the curtain rose. Every gesture, every fall, every facial twitch was precisely choreographed yet felt spontaneous, a testament to decades of discipline. Red often said, "The road teaches you more than a studio ever could." Out there, you see real life, the struggles, the laughs, the pain, and you carry it with you onto the stage. He witnessed families arriving with crumpled tickets, couples on first dates, and elderly fans reliving memories of his radio days. The audience's reaction shaped him as much as he shaped them, creating a reciprocal energy that fueled decades of performances. For Red, comedy was also deeply therapeutic. In interviews, he confessed that performing allowed him to process personal grief. The death of his son, Richard, in 1958, left a wound that never fully healed. Yet, Red poured that pain into his characters. Freddie the Freeloader, with his vulnerability and innocence, became a mirror of Red's own struggles, allowing him to laugh while mourning, to heal while entertaining. He once wrote in a private journal, "Each laugh I receive is a small exhale of sorrow. I perform not just for them, but for myself, to survive the memories that haunt me." This philosophy influenced the depth of his pantomime, where silence carried as much emotion as dialogue. His gestures, timing, and pauses were carefully constructed yet deeply human, ensuring that audiences felt the weight behind the humor. Red Skelton was a master of character creation, turning fleeting ideas into personas that would endure for decades. Clem Cadillhopper, George Appleby, and Freddie the Freeloader were more than sketches, they were entirely realized human beings, each with quirks, flaws, and charm. Freddie, in particular, resonated with audiences because he represented the underdog in all of us. He was down on his luck, often ignored by society, but carried an indomitable spirit and a heart full of kindness. Through Freddie, Red reminded the world that laughter can coexist with hardship, and that even in despair, there is room for warmth and connection. Red spent hours refining these characters. Costumes were adjusted, facial expressions practiced, and gestures rehearsed to convey subtle emotion. "It's not enough for someone to see a clown fall," he once said. "They need to feel the fall, the embarrassment, the triumph. That's when the magic happens." Despite being a consummate performer, Red was also deeply involved in the production of his shows. He reviewed scripts, directed camera angles, and coached guest stars to match the pacing and tone of his sketches. HBO specials, such as the 1981 Freddie the Freeloader Christmas Dinner, were intimate collaborations where Red insisted on authenticity, ensuring that moments of laughter were genuine, and moments of emotion were raw. Crew members remembered him quietly correcting gestures, adjusting props, and sometimes stepping in to demonstrate a pantomime, no matter his age or health. He was never too proud to do the work himself, one assistant recalled. Red treated every frame as sacred. Every laugh, every silence, every pause mattered. The uncensored Tubi specials in 2024 revealed a man finally speaking to the world as himself, without the mask of the clown. In one extended monologue, Red reflected on his father's death just months before his birth, the struggles of his mother raising 4 boys, and the countless moments of hardship that shaped him. Viewers were struck by his honesty. He spoke not to entertain but to confess, acknowledging the mistakes, the theft of circus routines, the lost opportunities, and the grief that never left him. In this way, the clown who had brought joy for decades became fully human, revealing the complex interplay of laughter, pain, and redemption. Even in his later years, Red continued to mentor younger performers, particularly those interested in physical comedy, pantomime, and storytelling. He encouraged aspiring comics to study the rhythm of life itself, observing gestures, expressions, and timing in ordinary people. Comedy is observation, he often said. It's the careful study of humanity, distilled into a smile, a fall, a pause. Students and protégés recalled his gentle yet firm guidance, pushing them to find authenticity in their performances rather than relying on gimmicks or cheap laughs. Red's philosophy emphasized connection over spectacle, teaching that humor is most powerful when it resonates with truth. By the time of his final specials, Red Skelton's influence had permeated multiple facets of American culture. Generations of comedians, from television stars to silent performers, credited him with teaching the importance of empathy in comedy. Scholars of media and performing arts studied his work as examples of how humor can navigate both social critique and universal human emotion. The Paley Center for Media, the Red Skelton Museum, and other institutions preserved his contributions, showcasing both his performances and paintings. Audiences saw not just the laughter he created,